Unless there's some religion that worships, a natural order in which, the earth herself, nature itself, is the only main outside force that can impact our lives,
Gotcha.
then I don't believe in any other higher power. I mean, I could see where you're coming from, and that does make sense.
Before we started recording, you mentioned that you are an atheist, meaning what exactly?
Well, simply that I just don't believe in a higher power.
Yeah. You don't believe in, I guess, a creator of the world. So I guess I've heard it said that an atheist is someone who believes, you can correct me if I'm wrong, basically that nothing created the known world.
Yeah,
is that true?
Nothing, at least in my mind, no supernatural being or higher power, anything like that. I mean, I don't know if this counts, but I do believe in karma, and I also do believe in just kind of the natural world, that Mother Earth herself is sort of has a tangible impact on the way we live and the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless there's some religion that worships, a natural order in which, the earth herself, nature itself, is the only main outside force that can impact our lives,
Gotcha.
then I don't believe in any other higher power.
And so, here's just a question for you. I guess, how can something come from nothing, right? In order for something to exist, something had to always exist, right?
I mean, that's why...
And so how can this world, I guess, come out of nothing? Because it had to have started somewhere, right? There was a beginning to the universe. You can see that materialistically in nature, right? The expansion of the universe shows that it had a starting point. How is it possible, I guess, that something can come from nothing?
Well, I mean, that's the answer that scientists have been trying to determine for a long time. And I mean, sure, they don't have a definitive answer, but they have theories. I mean, for example, the most common and the most well-known is the Big Bang Theory, how essentially a bunch of small little atoms kind of collided together, created a massive explosion, which then gave the way for planets and solar systems to be born through natural processes like that. And I mean, I don't necessarily think that there has to be something to have created everything for us to exist. I mean, if the universe and everything that we know had to have come from nothing, then so be it. I don't know why there has to be a higher power. I mean, and this is just my opinion.
Totally.
I feel like a big reason why so many people are religious is because they feel like there's just not any comfort in knowing that there's no higher being. There's nothing looking over you that helped create you. There's, no afterlife. Essentially, when you die, then that's it. Nothing happens. And I think just people find a lot of comfort in knowing that maybe there's a God up there who looks over them, or that there is, a better, ironically, a better life after death. If you go to heaven, or, if you are a bad person, then you go to the underworld or to hell in Christianity. Then, that kind of guides people and helps them in a lot of ways. And I know that, being religious builds community and, just gives you a sense of purpose in life.
It does.
So, I mean, I understand at least that aspect of religion, why people gravitate towards it. But for me, I just personally don't need religion to live a happy, fulfilling life.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I respect you for having your opinion. I thank you for having the guts to want to share that. Now, if I were to just ask you, where would you say you find truth within your worldview? What do you look to determine what is right and what's wrong?
Well, I mean, I don't need to be a Christian or follow any other religion to know just basic human decency. I mean, it's pretty logical that, if someone is nice to you and they're genuinely nice to you, then you should be nice back. I mean, just basic moral lessons and codes,
It makes sense for an atheist to say, like yourself, that I don't need a book to tell me what is right and wrong, right? And so my question for you, I guess, would be then how do you know what is right and wrong? I guess truly right and truly wrong. Is there such thing as absolute objective truth and morals?
Well, in my opinion, no. I mean, it really just depends. I mean, if you're not religious, then it just depends on your own personalized life experience and what you think is right and wrong.
Right. And then so what's wrong then with the person who says my life experience has taught me to, I guess, think of the worst moral thing that we would think of by our standards. Let's say somebody grew up and they live a life that says the good thing for me to do is to fly a plane to the Twin Towers, right? And who are we? Let's say there is no God. Let's say you're right. Let's say we are simply flesh bags who are reacting to our own protoplasms in our DNA, right? Who are we to say that they're wrong? Are they wrong?
Well, I mean, like I said, it's up to the interpretation of whoever perceives, in your case, the 9/11 example. Really just...
Because I think most of the population would agree that was a wrong thing to do.
Well, yeah, right. Of course, because there were innocent... I mean, the people in those towers did nothing wrong to the perpetrators. So it was not inherent, vengeance. Like, the people in those towers had meaningfully hurt the hijackers. You know, that was purely... absolutely, I would agree that was a horrible, incredibly evil
But do you see
act.
the logic that I'm... Just the logic line that I'm trying to paint here, that we can both agree that something is right and something is wrong. And you're saying that I don't need a book to tell me something is right and wrong because I just know what's right and what's wrong.
Exactly.
So I'm saying, how do you know? How do you know what's right and what's wrong when other people can say, I just know, and then they just have their own subjective morals that can be very monstrous, and we would call it a horrible act. When it's just two subjective people. And at the end of the day, I'm saying, with your worldview, I mean this with no offense, just simply talking constructively, with your worldview, I don't think you have the basis to say that was wrong or this was right. Because
you're saying that I have no moral standard at its core.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could see where you're coming from, and that does make sense, but then again, I mean, even if you don't have a moral standard, and if you were to perceive, that as wrong, even though you have no inherent moral standard, I mean, it's not like not having a moral standard inherently just makes you a bad person, because...
No, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're a bad person.
Because
I'm saying that you can't account for what is wrong and what's right.
Well,
right?
Right, I know. Because, I mean, even if you don't have a moral... That's what I'm saying, though, is that even if you don't have a moral standard, that doesn't mean that you can't decide what is right and wrong. I mean, you set that moral standard for yourself. You don't need a book to set a set of principles. So, and it's because you set your own moral standards, people's moral standards may be different. So one person who sets their own moral standards, like me, and doesn't perceive that action as wrong, another person who might also be an atheist like me might have perceived it as right. I mean, God forbid, but
they're out there.
Because they're out there. They have their own moral standards, and they don't follow religion, and they might perceive that as somehow justifiable.
Yeah. And so that's why I would say, by what basis, right, can you say that they're wrong? By what basis can you say, if we're just people who have evolved to where we are, and there's no overarching meaning, there's nothing that gives us purpose, nothing that says this is right, this is wrong, and we merely just are. It's kind of like, it's more like this. Two weeds are growing up in a field. One chokes out the other. Which one was right? And it's like, right? What do you mean? They just were. They were just existing, doing what they do. And in the same way, I think in a world without God, with no moral, transcendent meaning, touching both sides of the equation, there's no basis to say what's right and wrong. We just are. We're just existing. And so, like, when somebody does some atrocious act, if you have no basis, right, then who are we to say what's right and what's wrong? We just are. We're just existing. And so that's just an interesting thought, right? I don't know if you want to say anything else on that topic. I just have one other question for you.
Okay, sure.
Another question for you is who would you say is the God of the Bible?
Oh, who is the God of the Bible? Well,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm an atheist, but even I know that there are different sects of sects of Christianity.
Yeah.
So, there's Judaism, there's Catholicism, there's, normal, or not normal, but other branches of Christianity, and, subsections of that, like baptism.
Yeah.
Or Baptist Christianity. Yeah.
Presbyterian, yeah.
There you go, yeah. So, I mean, it really just
So
depends
like, what is the
on-
Bible, I guess, have you ever read the Bible?
No, I've never read the Bible.
Okay. And so, do you have any, I guess, idea of who God is
Well, yeah,
as described in the Bible?
Well, I mean, yeah, because I've heard it tons of times,
Totally.
even without having read the Bible. I mean, I know that the basic idea behind God is that he is a benevolent being who created human beings, and through the testaments and, the Bible itself kind of lays out the idea or not only the history of the creation of Earth,
Mhm.
but also just basic moral principles and just ways to live life, basically.
Yeah.
What are good ways and what are bad ways to live life?
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good general explanation of who God is. It describes him as the creator, right? It describes him as it doesn't take far to learn that in the Bible. Genesis 1:1. It's a common verse. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? Then it goes on and then it describes Jesus, right? In the New Testament, opens up in the Gospel of John, and it says that apart from him, nothing was made that was made, and then this word became flesh and dwelt among us, in John 1, verse 14. So have you heard of Jesus?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, of course I have.
Yeah. If you could tell me a couple things about him, who was he?
Who was, okay.
Yeah.
Who was Jesus? Well, I mean, Jesus was the guy who, the famous image of him on the cross.
Totally.
Sacrificing, basically dying for people's sins.
Yeah.
And, he's just kind of stands as this figure who is like the ultimate, symbol of, I guess, good in the world.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting take, because I can ask different people and they'll give me different answers. Most of them give answers along those lines, right? That Jesus was this good teacher, that he taught some good things. According to the Bible, it mentions that he is God on earth, right? And so the overall message is this. I'm sure you've heard it in this very Christianized society. Not so much anymore, but historically, right? The United States has been pretty Christian, Judeo-Christian ethics. And so the overall message is this, that Jesus Christ lived this perfect life. And I can cut this short because I know you probably want to get going with your day.
No, I mean, I
no.
have a class soon.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So Jesus lived a perfect life, right? Meaning all these sins that we've done, these sins such as lying, stealing, looking with lust, which Jesus equates to adultery in the heart. These things that we would say are bad things. Jesus never did. It says that in Romans chapter 3, that for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But then it says in James that Jesus was tempted in all ways and yet without sin. And that separate from his creation that he's created, he hasn't sinned. And it makes him the sacrifice on the cross. And you mentioned that he died on the cross, that image, right, of him dying. But the reason it was significant is this. You and I, we owed a debt to God because we have broken his law. And because we've broken his law, we've made ourselves, I guess, deserving of that punishment called hell. And Jesus Christ came into this world. He lived that perfect life, and he died on the cross as a sacrifice. That's what's missing in a lot of the story that we don't hear in today's day and age, is that it was a sacrifice to God. And so the reality is for you, my friend, is that if you repent of your sins and place your trust in him, you can be forgiven. You can be forgiven by the only one that can condemn you. That's God himself. And so, I don't know, I want to go around and share this message because I believe it to be true. I believe you're in danger. I believe that people here, if you've told one lie, it says in Revelation, you tell a lie and it says you'll have your part in the lake of fire. And I'm not trying to scare you into it. I'm not trying to use fear tactics, because if it's truly true, then out of love on my end, the best I can do is push you out of the way.
Is warn me.
Right. And so, I don't know, you have any thoughts on that? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll just leave it off here.
Yeah.
Because I do have to get going
Yeah, no
soon.
worries.
And I appreciate you sharing, your perspective with me.
Yeah.
It is interesting to hear, your perspective. But I personally, just for me, think, like, at least the way that I view the world is that why should I feel indebted to a higher being that I don't even know? I mean, it's not like when I was born, I met Jesus, or I was even made aware of his presence. So because of that, why is it fair that I should...
Why do you owe him anything?
Yeah, why do I owe him anything when I don't even know him? Right. And why I myself aren't even aware of his, his presence, unless, of course, I'm born into a Christian family, which, I mean, my dad is Catholic, but then my mom is also a practicing atheist, and she lets me, believe in what I want to believe, but I just simply feel like the logic behind atheism it makes more sense to me living that kind of lifestyle than, living in kind of a Christian or religious household.
Gotcha.
Or lifestyle.
Gotcha. Well, fair enough.